Welcome to Cuba. There they are, the Castro brothers. Cuba is a Caribbean island, 90 miles from our Florida shores. It's 780 miles long and 52 miles wide. It's been off limits to US citizens since 1962, when Kennedy put the embargo into effect, which meant no trade, no travel for US citizens. And Cuba was put on the US list of Cold War enemies. Yes, those cannons are aimed at us. So, why did I want to go to Cuba? Well, anyone who's been following my work over 50 years knows that I'm a big fan of cars and retro signage and buildings. Right from the start, back in 6th grade, I was photographing cars. And later on with my hand-colored photos. And let's not forget, I've been on Route 66 3 times. I had seen photos of ornate Cuban buildings that were once mansions, but were now in disrepair and being shared by multiple families. Clothes hung on clotheslines in rooms that were once ballrooms. The contrast between what was and what is stark. It looked to me as though Cuba was a visual time capsule. American travel to Cuba is restricted to humanitarian and educational groups. However, that might have just changed today. Yes, there are other ways to go to Cuba, like through Canada or Mexico, but if caught, there are hefty fines, and I didn't want to be calling my daughter from jail. So, I've been keeping an eye out for a group going to Cuba when I saw a trip tailored for photographers in the ICP catalog. When I called, the trip was already sold out. So I said, let's start a waiting list. And there was so much demand on that waiting list that they created another trip. So we met with our group leader, who asked us to bring much needed items like Bengay, Advil, any kind of clothing, shampoo, soap, deodorant, razors. And we were warned not to talk about politics in closed areas, don't drink the water, and be prepared to go home exhausted. On December 2nd, my group and I, with our bulging suitcases, boarded an American Airlines jet in Miami and headed for Havana. About 45 minutes later, we were there. To help us get our bearings, we dropped off our bags and headed out to the Malecon, which is a gorgeous drive that follows the seawall around Havana. At the seawall, you're likely to see lovers, musicians, children getting wet and cooling off, fishermen, and tourists taking in the most amazing sunsets. And if you put your back to that wall, you see the traffic go by, which is a gorgeous sight. All those vintage cars. However, on my second trip, it really hit me that Cubans are stuck on this island, and suddenly the distance between the shores of the US seemed really far away in shark-infested waters. And I wondered what it would be like not to be able to get off this island. I had met many Cubans who tried multiple times to get visas to go visit their families in the US, and they had been denied permission. They know their phone calls are being listened in on, and their emails are being monitored. And that is why I included this set of photos in my show. I didn't want to get political, but I thought it should be addressed. One of my biggest surprises was how friendly and open the Cubans were. The first thing they want to know was where you're from, which is usually followed by how much they love our country. I got many, many hugs and kisses for being American. They were very receptive to being photographed, thank goodness. And on my second trip, I brought a Polaroid camera so I could give them photos of themselves, since when you make $35 a month, you probably don't have a camera in the house. They loved posing. To me, being invited to people's homes was one of the highlights of Cuba. I know when I've traveled to Paris, no one has invited me into their apartments to show me their television set. Here are some interior shots. This man wanted to show me his television set, which he was very proud of. Is that Jen?
No.
Oh.
We thought it was your bag of books.
Oh. So anyway, so as you can see, whole families live in 2 or 3 rooms, and they may all share a bed. The bathroom is likely down the hall and shared with neighbors, and there is no air conditioning when it hits 90 and 100 degrees. This woman here thought she was the dancing grandma. But if you notice, I mean, the tile floors are beautiful. They're high ceilings. You can't really see in this photo, but there's beautiful ironwork on the windows. Here is a ballroom that's now used to dry laundry. Ornate balcony that is patched with an oven grill. Anyway, I took great pleasure in seeing how they decorated their homes. I'm sure they don't have batteries for that anymore. So everything is from the 60s and before. Saw a little sanatoria. You are allowed to worship. From the outside, you can see the bones of what were once very ornate and beautiful buildings. The quality of housing seemed to diminish the further away from an urban area you got. But they have everything. This is the Moorish influence, Art Deco, more classical. This is outside of Havana, but Art Deco-y. More Art Deco. This is a tobacco farmer's house. This is in a small fishing village. It's out in the country. In this house, it was dirt floors with a pig in their kitchen. And they are right on the water, so I don't know how they ever survive a hurricane, but. The cab drivers were always very engaging, and they were accommodating as I shot many photos of their vintage cars. Many spoke English, or some English. A couple of years ago, Castro eased restrictions on cabs, and now owning a cab is one of the few ways you can go into business for yourself in Cuba. But I loved the old detail of the old cars. There's so much steel. Love the hood ornaments and the colors. More cool colors. That was new to me, the Oldsmobile. A lot of our hood ornaments back from the 50s were of eagles and things that look like airplanes. Here someone's put two hood ornaments together. I like the swans. Again, two hood ornaments. Broken down cars are a very common sight, and most cars have been converted to diesel and have jerry-rigged parts. And getting new replacement parts is very difficult, so they somehow manage. They make it work. Since most Cubans don't have a car, they use what they can, whether it's a horse and buggy or a bus or bike or one of these things, which is great to travel around in because you really get to see everything. Motorcycles every once in a while. There are very few tractors, so they use oxen and horses to plow their fields. And it looks as though they're using a bike chain instead of a normal ring in the oxen's nose. Sports are very popular and encouraged. There's workout equipment in the parks. There are public pools. And physical education is taught outside. This is a baseball stadium, a PE class. Another PE class right out on the sidewalk. Baseball is very big there. I didn't see a game, but they have regional teams, and apparently it's a very rowdy affair. They have Brave fans and Yankee fans. Boxing is a source of pride in Cuba. This is a female boxer who's very well respected. These guys are training for the Olympics. This man is Felix Savant, who's a boxing legend in Cuba. He won 3 Olympic golds for heavyweight boxing for Cuba and many amateur world championships. So he is an idol. The arts are supported by the Cuban government. There's an art university, which is amazing, and it's more difficult to get into than Harvard or Stanford. Admissions varies year to year, depending on how many painters or photographers or printers or drummers or whatever they think they'll need each year. This painter actually did a residency at Johnson State, though I tried to communicate with him and he really didn't know very much English, and my high school Spanish was failing me, I guess. But I did see his resume and saw that it was Johnson State. Dancing is very big there. And there are many forms. When people hear the word Cuban, immediately some people think of cigars. Cigar production is very labor intensive. After the leaves are picked, they're sewn with a needle and thread, about 10 leaves at a time, and then hung on poles in a drying barn. And once they're dried, they are flattened and then rolled. Now, the man who's rolling these cigars rolls about 2 dozen a day. And there he's enjoying one, a very big one. The person he works for is Hector Luis Puerto, and he has award-winning cigars. And in this photo, he's standing in his walk-in humidor. And in those drawers are where the cigars are held. And he smokes about 10 cigars a day. Yeah. Americans can now bring back $100 worth of cigars and or rum. And I always bring back my full quota for my neighbors. According to legend, President Kennedy had his press secretary get him 1,200 cigars before signing the papers, putting the embargo in effect. Cubans love their dogs, particularly dachshunds and small dogs, and it took a little getting used to seeing them roam around the city, but they all look fed. During my first visit, I noticed there were no scrawny island cats like most Caribbean islands, and when I asked where they were, I got a pretty shocking answer. During this special period, the Cuban government suggested the people eat their pets to prevent their families from starving. This special period started right after the Soviet Union fell in 1991. It was then that Cuba stopped receiving financial support from the Soviet Union, and right away, half of Cuba's factories closed, and extreme austerity measures were put in place, and it came down to all about survival. Many families outside of the country received help to survive. It really was dire. When the big announcement came last December about resuming U.S. relations with Cuba, I was ecstatic, because that's what all the Cubans had told me they'd wanted when I went on my first trip. But I do worry about their expectations being too high, and I'm also concerned about their natural resources and whether they'll have a say in what happens to them. And the water was fantastic, nice and warm. Right now, most of the beaches outside of Havana are pristine and undeveloped. Agriculture is mostly chemical and pesticide-free because the farmers can't afford pesticides or chemicals. That's a tobacco barn. Cuba's greatest resource are its people. They have a 99% literacy rate, and most appear fit, and there's virtually no drug problems. Penalty for dealing drugs are severe there. After what they've been through in the last 50 years, they've proved to be resourceful and resilient. This man loves America, so he has the American eagle tattooed on his back. He wanted to come home with me. I don't think so. So I really wish them the best, and I hope to return to the country in years to come to see the changes on this amazing island. Are there any questions? Okay.
How did you get around the island?
We had a tour bus,
Oh.
and the bus driver is an employee of the government. Our tour guide was an employee of the government. However, if you were not in the bus, she's happy to talk about what's wrong with the government. And then we had our leader.
Where did you stay?
In Havana, I stayed at the Park Central. And outside, I don't remember the hotels.
Are they tourist hotels?
Yeah, one barely had toilet seats, and one had ants in the showers, barely had locks, so they would not have made the AAA guide. So they have to.
They do have hotels though for
I noticed.
tourists.
Yeah, they do. I mean, we were going to more remote areas, and Airbnb is there now. Yes.
The government knows Airbnb is there.
I hope so. I saw them advertised in the Times. Yeah?
We had the, I guess, was very much a pleasure to go to about 2 years ago with the historic preservation group. And one of the interesting things feedback that we got from certainly the preservation people was a concern about lifting the embargo and the impact of tourism on very cherished resources on that island. And I'm wondering if you picked up that a lot of people were in favor of it, but I'm wondering if you've also heard that concern.
Well, the first time I went was right before the announcement in December, and that's all they talked about, let's end the embargo. And then after, when I went back in end of March, there were some people saying, yes, we're a little worried about change coming too fast. We're worried about big corporations coming in.
Sort of a follow-up to that. My understanding is there are about 2 million visitors to the island, mostly Europeans and Canadians. But none of your pictures showed sort of any commercialization. So did you see that impact?
In Havana, you can see that they're trying to build more hotel rooms out of existing beautiful buildings. Like right across from the hotel I stayed at, there's another hotel with a lot of rooms going up. And I don't know if it's going to be part of the hotel I stay in or if it's another one. The hotel I stayed in was owned 51% by the Cuban government and 49% by the Spanish government.
Did you see? I mean, 2 million visitors is a lot of people. Did you see?
That's a lot of people. Well, I know that I'm going back in January, and back in March, they were already booking the rooms and having trouble. So there's a lot of demand, and maybe Airbnb will take some of that demand pressure off.
I think also the exclusive resorts carry a lot of those people. They're exclusive beachfront resorts, and that there are a number of people from Europe who go to the beachfront resorts and literally never leave and just hang out there for a week or two, so you might not have.
I didn't see
there.
those because Americans, when they're there, are not supposed to be having fun. It's supposed to be educational or humanitarian. So we did actually go to the beach one afternoon, and we were told to keep quiet, don't look like you're having too much fun.
I'm wondering, because at this point, the prices to go there are really high, $3,000, $5,000. So does some of that money actually go back into the Cuban economy, or what does
Oh my
that
God.
go?
All right, first of all, when you go, you're told to bring only crisp $100 bills because they don't take credit cards. So you get there, and right off the bat, you are given they have two currencies, one for tourists, one for them. You're given 87, when you give them $100, you get $87 worth back of the tourist currency. So right off the bat, they're getting 13%. I think most people involved with the tourist trade rely on tips. Our first guide was an engineer, he had a master's, but he made more money being a guide and getting tips.
So where does all the the money going, to when you're spending $3,000-4,000 to go 90 miles?
I guess
Just
the
one-
Castro brothers.
Yeah. So it's going to the government then?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the only way to get it to the people is to tip them. And even when, like the cab drivers are in business for themselves, they are taxed at a higher rate apparently, because they know they're getting tourist money, and the government's going to take some of it.
Is there a lot of European investment, other country investment in
I
Cuba?
don't know, but I mean, that's what worries me is one, if they think change is going to come in. I mean, every other country is allowed to go there, and they've had the potential to do something there. So just because we're allowed to go, I mean, I don't know if we're all, I mean, maybe we will flood in, I don't know, but I would think they'd want to have some control over it.
But all those beautiful buildings that you depicted there, those are government owned?
Yes, but there is some sort of weird real estate going on. I mean, yes, you're assigned housing, but if your family's been there a long time, it sort of becomes your family's house. It's a little nebulous.
And you can now sell houses for the first time in a long time. You can now sell.
Yes, but
foreigners, European companies, like you were saying, own 49% of every nice hotel, fancy hotel, and most of the renovation as well are collaborations with European countries.
Have they already worked out whether Cubans who are here can make claims against?
I heard talk about it the first time 2 days ago on VPR. I don't know what they're gonna do.
Was any of your work censored as you were taking it, or in any fashion?
We were told when we drove through Guantanamo not to photograph, and we were told not in airports.
That was it?
That was it.
Because you have such a variety of subject matter.
No,
Pretty cool.
no. Not a problem, yeah.
Do you have any idea what the medical system is like there?
Well, I mean, I'd heard how fantastic it was, and yet when I was visiting one of the apartments, there was this little girl who was home from school, and I said, well, why is she home? It's because she had asthma and there's no medicine. So yeah, they can diagnose it, I guess, but I don't know if they can afford the medicine.
My husband's a pulmonologist, and that's kind of true in that whole area. We've spent a lot of time in Mexico also with, because their treatment, there's this dichotomy between the diagnosis and the treatment.
Right.
And they usually don't need prescriptions for a lot of those pharmacies.
Well, it's and also for the physicians to know how to administer drugs and prescribe them and people to use them. There's a lot of education that has to take place so they know how to manage the disease.
Primary care is very good.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, primary care.
Uh-huh.
When you
That's what I
get to
wondered.
more
Uh-huh.
specialized care,
Uh-huh.
I think that it falls down.
Yeah.
That's what we learned.
Oh, really? I mean, I expected everybody says, oh, well, they have dental and all that, but it's not as though their teeth were so much better than our teeth.
I just want to say, you are one fantastic photographer.
Oh, thank you. Sure, go ahead.
So how did you get access to all these places? Was it arranged? Or could you
It's
walk around?
arranged. Our troop leader has been going there for many years, so he sort of knows the ins and outs. And that's why that was such a great group to go with, since it was geared for photographers. I mean, I didn't want to sit on a tour bus and hear, this is the, government building, and this is where the revolution started. I didn't really want to see that. I wanted to see the nitty gritty.